Yeah, the next module is Spatial Simulation. The module author and also the lecturer, Gudrun Valentin, is already here. She's Associated Professor of Geoinformatics and Ecology here at the Department of Geoinformatics, ZGIS here in Salzburg. She is also head of UniGIS Salzburg and leads the Spatial Simulation Research Group, and hence is an absolute expert in spatial simulation. So Gudrun, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Now this is another PowerPoint session. I won't show you too many, but a few is quite interesting in spatial simulation because you see things moving and evolving on the screen, because that's all about spatial simulation. It is a method that not only displays but generates spatial temporal systems. So in spatial simulation, we not just analyze a spatial temporal system as we do, for example, in GIS or as we do in remote sensing, but we are rebuilding it. So it's a lot about systems, and it's a lot about simulating these systems. I want to start my talk with what many of you probably think would be the end, the assignments. So that's what you're going to be able to do after you have finished this module. There are 5 assignments. The first one is to apply a given model that is available in the model library of the software we are using to your own data. So that's the warm-up assignment. Should be pretty straightforward to do, but it's good to see how easy it is actually to implement a given model on your own data. As an example, we take the Schelling's model. That is a model that simulates urban segregation. Everybody is interested in social science probably knows the problem of urban segregation, where you have little Italy and Chinatown and the posh districts and the poor districts. And why does that happen? This model explains it. Then we have an hydrological runoff model. That's for those people who are more interested in geophysical processes. We use a cellular automaton for that. Then we are moving on to agent-based models, integrate 2 of these so that you take like Lego blocks that are already out there, combine them and make something new out of it. Then there is a method in interpreting a model, which is called sensitivity analysis, very important in simulation analysis. You'll also be able to do that. And last but not least, that is the 5th assignment is the one where you can show what you have learned. It integrates everything together, given an example with species distribution. Right, so let me jump into what spatial simulation actually is. And with this talk, I would like to share a little bit my passion about spatial simulation, and this is also the reason why I authored this module, and I would like to pass that on whoever wants to sign up for that module, to see what can be done and why it is so interesting working with spatial simulation models. So a model is like a laboratory. A laboratory has all the stuff, the gear, the essences, the chemical ingredients there that you need to do an experiment. The actual hypothesis testing, the actual research, the actual learning about something is happening in the experiment. And with the model and the simulation, it's the same. The model is like the lab. You rebuild a real system there. But the simulation is where you learn about things, where you make the in-silico or virtual experiment. And that little word landscape tells that this is not about chemicals and ingredients or rats and mice, but it's landscapes. So we want to learn about the patterns of landscapes. How did they come about? How did these patterns emerge? So how do these patterns emerge? I want to give you a little example for that, what I mean with that. Emergence means that a pattern at the landscape level comes from individuals. That can be individual animals, it can be individual plants, it can be individual landscape entities, something smaller. And from these individuals that interact with each other and with their environment, something bigger emerges, like a forest from many trees. Yeah? So this little example of birds wants to make that clear in a spatio-temporal context. So these two birds, they want to fly together, flock together, and they are too close, so their wings would touch when they flap their wings when flying. So they're too close, they're unhappy. Let's put them farther apart. They cannot communicate anymore. They will lose each other. They cannot navigate together, so they're too far. And then there is a like cozy distance. Oops, yeah, a cozy distance where these two birds feel happy to go. And if they fly, and I'm sorry that I showed you the result already, think a minute of what would come out if there is 100 birds going together, flying together with this cozy distance. So what would be the spatial temporal pattern that comes out of I want to fly with you and 100 other birds in this cozy distance? And that's the so-called flocking pattern. So the birds fly around in flocks. And you know that probably from the hundreds or thousands of starlings in autumn when they gather, they make similar flocks. So if we then have a research hypothesis about the social behavior of starlings, we could have scenarios to better understand those birds in this case, or these other entities, plants, landscape units, whatever we are interested in, and how they form this spatial temporal pattern in the landscape. So that's the idea. We're using GAMMA. GAMMA stands for GIS and Agent-Based Modeling Architecture. So that's a software environment that is built as an open source software to offer modelers a tool set to build agent-based models. So agent-based models and cellular automata are the two main approaches to build spatial simulation models. I will touch more methods, but these are the two spatially explicit modeling approaches that we are going to work with in this model. GAMMA is a software environment, so it gives you the environment for programming. So actually, if you like application development, this is a course that you're going to love. If you have not so much experience, maybe you do the application development modules first to get a basic understanding of how programming works. It's an object-based language, so you'll learn a lot also about programming, but the main focus, of course, is on the content, is on system analysis by the means of modeling. And here are some examples so that you can have a better idea of what this kind of tools can do. This is the ANTS model. It's one of the most famous spatial simulation models, I guess. It is rebuilding the system of ants looking for food. And they're doing that with pheromones, and that's what's popping out green here. So if here's in the center is the nest, and here is fodder, here's fodder. So if the one ant finds something to eat, it carries the food home, and at the same time it leaves some scent, some pheromone. Other ants can smell that, and once they're on track, they also leave pheromone, pick up food, go home again. This makes it stronger and stronger and stronger, and this is actually a very common algorithm that is used in artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is nothing else than lending concepts of biology or very neurosciences, of how the brain works, how social animals work, and implementing it for a little bit different purpose. So the ants model is very much used for wayfinding, for route finding. If this is not in a network, but on a 2D space like here, the ants model is a very good and very effective algorithm for wayfinding, but you can use it also for more abstract optimization algorithms. So if you're interested in AI, and I saw some of you are interested in AI, this agent-based modeling is one of the key methods for artificial intelligence, really. Right, example number 2, plant spread. So the spread, so let's start from the beginning again. The spread of an invasive species in Galapagos Islands that makes huge problems there, and all the other trees are overcrowded with these plants. So this is a student's project given on the distribution, some hypotheses how this distribution works. This plant spread was modeled by the students and also verified. So you can, taking remote sensing data, for example, verify the outcomes of a simulation model, which of course is very important if you want to work further with it and do scenarios and make some strategies, for example, how to save Galapagos from this invasive tree species. Example number 3, also very interesting, and I just run through these projects to see to show you different application domains. This is the city of Salzburg, and if I start the simulation, the green arrows that you can see here are bicyclists that are going from home to work, and afterwards they go back again. And by that, what emerges is that the bicycle traffic in the city of Salzburg. This actually today is a PhD project, so it was. This, what you can see here, is this result of a master class project. Sorry, it's a course in the residential MSc where students came up with that at the end of the semester. And I think that's the last example now. That's from the latest model from my own research. It is a model about the corona outbreak. So you can see here the red persons being infected, isolating themselves, and the yellow ones moving around, and the orange ones are the ones that are not yet in isolation and carry the virus. So the spread goes on. From that, I made some scenarios about future possibilities to condemn the outbreak. That was done really early, as you can see here, March 2020, really early at the beginning of the outbreak. Back to the module, that's my last slide. That's too small to read, I know that. No worries, you don't have to read that. That's the structure of the course. You can see that the assignments start more or less in the middle and go throughout the last 2/3 of the module. So don't do too much in the beginning of it. Don't waste too much time in the beginning and see that you get your assignments done. The beginning is a conceptual background. So that gives you an idea about systems and systems theory, which personally I find super interesting, and that's really relevant for many, many application domains in geoinformatics. And as we are working with systems in GIS and geoinformatics, but especially in spatial simulation, it's really good to think a little bit about the theory behind that. The second block of this module is about approaches, different approaches to modeling spatial systems, non-spatial and spatial systems. Traditionally, modeling systems was only focusing on non-spatial systems simply because it was computationally easier and doable. Only since the last maybe 20 years, we're really good in modeling spatial systems over time. And then the third part is hands-on model implementation. This is where we are going to code the GAML language that is a language that isn't used anywhere else, but it's a quite logic language that adheres to the standards of object-oriented programming languages. So if you have some ideas about programming, this won't be too hard for you. As I said, you should be, at least, you don't have to have prior knowledge of programming. It's good to have one, but what is a must is that you have some pleasure in modeling, in programming. So this is main parts of the assignments are programming assignments. Right, so far so good. I am finished and taking questions.